When the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. Those words resonate like a bell struck in a quiet hall, clear, simple, and full of an invitation. They are not a promise of easy answers. They are a map. They are a statement about timing, readiness, and the invisible pull that draws teacher and student together. Imagine the moment as a subtle orchestration, a book resting on a table, a hand reaching, and a life tilting toward an idea. That is the scene we walk through now, a narrative journey into the Hermetic idea that the right teaching finds the right ear, and the right ear finds the right teaching. Picture a small, weathered book lying on a shelf in a room filled with afternoon light. Dust motes move like tiny planets around a lamp. The air smells faintly of tea and old paper. On the cover there are words that seem almost alive, whispering across the worn leather, the Kybalion. It is not merely an object. It is a container of patterns, of distilled thought, of laws. The law most central to this moment is the principle of cause and effect, but presented not as cold determinism, but as a warm, living thread woven through intention and attention. When the pupil is ready, the book itself becomes an instrument of attraction. The law is not only about action and outcome, it is about resonance. Resonance is a curious thing. Two tuning forks of the same pitch will vibrate together across a distance, seemingly in sympathy. That sympathy is not magic but physics. It is measurable. Yet there is a poetic shadow to that same fact when applied to minds and teachings. When an open mind, a softened heart, and a sincere hunger for truth vibrate at a certain pitch, they call to a teaching tuned to the same frequency. The lips of wisdom are drawn near. The idea is as simple as breath and as complex as the weather. Walk with me then into the interior of readiness. Readiness is not an on-off switch. It is a landscape with slopes and plateaus, seasons and twilights. Early readiness may be curiosity, a flicker of wonder about why things are the way they are. Later, it becomes discernment, an ability to separate the signal from the noise. At its deepest, readiness is humility, a quiet acceptance that one does not yet know, paired with a fierce commitment to learn. The Kybalion speaks to that deepest place, where the student no longer seeks to be right, but to be taught. Observe the pupil in the room. Not a caricature, not a cartoon of eagerness, but a person shaped by ordinary life. Small disappointments, moments of joy, questions that have circled for years like migratory birds. The pupil approaches the book without fanfare. The action is simple: reach, open, read. Yet the moment is paradoxical, heavy with meaning. The book is a mirror and a key. It reflects what the student already feels, and it offers new doors to open. Reading is not a passive receiving. It is a ritual of reception. The student arranges the world to hear, quietens the mind, places the body in a posture of attention, breathes slowly. In that posture, a particular sentence glows, and the mind inclines like a sunflower to the sun. Here is where the Hermetic principle of cause and effect unfolds in a subtle guise. Cause is not always an external shove. Often it is an inner readiness that becomes the cause of external alignment. When the heart is ready, opportunities arrange themselves. The book appears on the shelf, not by literal fate, but by the cumulative causes set into motion by a life striving toward meaning. Conversations had, a hand guided by curiosity, nights spent reading. The effect is an encounter that feels like serendipity. So mote it be, says the old phrase, so it manifests. To make this principle practical, imagine your attention as a magnet. Where you focus, momentum grows. The pupil in our scene did not simply wait for wisdom. They cultivated an ear that could listen, a daily practice of noticing, a habit of asking better questions, a willingness to let go of easy certainties. As such, the student became an attractor for the teaching. The cause? Disciplined openness. The effect? The teaching arriving in form. A book, a teacher, a line of poetry heard at the right moment. This is not accidental thinking. The Kybalion frames these dynamics as universal laws, which means they work without reference to belief or desire. Whether one believes in magic, religion, or science matters little. The mechanism operates. It is worth recognizing then that our internal state is among the most potent causes we exert in life. An anxious mind draws chaotic circumstances. A generous mind draws moments of grace. The pupil learns this through experiment. They practice stillness and notice how things shift. They practice gratitude and see doors open. These are not manipulative tricks, but ways of aligning with the whole. There is another dimension here, language. The Kybalion uses phrases that are deliberately poetic. When the ears of the student are ready to hear, is not a clinical sentence. It is an incantation. Words shape perception. When the student adopts language that honors readiness, the language of listening, of gentleness, of aim, they reshape their experience. Conversely, a mind that uses fear-based language will tune to fear. The suggestion is clear: choose words that create space for learning. Speak to yourself as a garden, not a battlefield. Now consider the teacher, though not as an external authority, but as the active principle of transmission. The teacher's lips are the instrument of transformation. They speak not to impose, but to awaken. In the archetypal scene, the master's footsteps are soft but decisive. Where they fall, ears ready for the teaching open wide. The master is a presence. Often in life, the master takes a disguised form. An article read at midnight, a friend who shares an insight, a misfortune that sharpens attention. The teaching travels. It is attracted to those who have made their inner ear receptive. Let us narrate a small but revealing flash. The pupil, after a month of reading one paragraph a day, wakes at dawn with a line of poetry turning like a key in their mind. The line is not the entire teaching, but it opens a corridor. Over weeks, what had been isolated facts begin to interlock into a structure. The student's life rearranges gently. Choices that once felt heavy become clearer. Relationships shift their tone. Work that had seemed meaningless now has a thread of purpose. The cause in this case is the patient engagement with the text. The effect is a reorientation of life. This is the everyday alchemy the Kybalion describes. There is also a caution here. Readiness is sometimes accompanied by impatience. The pupil may demand quick results, dramatic signs, or the approval of others. The law does not cater to vanity. It responds to authenticity. A heart-wanting influence rather than understanding will not attract true teaching. The Hermetic way favors truth over validation. The wise pupil practices patience, acceptance, and a steady alignment of means with ends. They cultivate practices that support growth. Journaling to trace patterns, meditation to steady attention, service to dissolve self-centeredness. These are humble methods, but potent. You as listener can carry this forward. To invite the teaching, begin with a simple experiment. Dedicate 10 minutes a day to quiet attention. In that space, ask one sincere question. Not a rhetorical one, but a real query. What is my next right step? Or where is my attention most needed? Then let go of the need for immediate answers. Observe. Write down any images, sentences, or emotions that arise in the following week. You will likely notice patterns, a recurring phrase, a metaphor, a nudge toward someone's name, or a book title. These are the subtle lips of wisdom beginning to speak. Practice another exercise. Curate your environment to become more receptive. Remove clutter that distracts. Place one object that symbolizes intent, a stone, a small plant, a photograph, and let it serve as a focal point. Reduce the noise that fragments attention. Mute notifications. Schedule small intervals of uninterrupted time. Create a ritual of entry. Light a candle, brew tea, sit in the same chair. Rituals are not superstition. They are scaffolding for attention. They tell the mind, now we listen. Over time, the mind will recognize the cue and settle more quickly into receptive states. Yet the Hermetic teaching is not only inward. It speaks of balance, of correspondence between inner and outer. As above, so below is not merely mystical speech. It is practical wisdom. The pupil must attend to both realms. External actions, ethical choices, consistent work, honest relationships, manifest inner growth into the world. The teaching is not an escape but an integration. A mind that studies and does not practice will remain theoretical. A practice that lacks inquiry will become mechanical. The magic happens where understanding meets embodiment. Let us return to the book on the shelf. The pages now turn. Sentences are absorbed not only into the intellect but into the body. The pupil finds, through simple repetition and application, that certain phrases act like keys. Concepts such as mentalism, the idea that all is mind; correspondence, the recognition of pattern across scales; vibration, the insight that everything moves; polarity, the recognition of dual aspects; rhythm, the dance of cycles; cause and effect, the responsibility of action; and gender, the creative balance of archetypal forces. These principles, when softened from dogma into living practice, become tools. They do not tell the pupil what to think. They present lenses through which to view experience. A natural question arises in the narrative. How does one know if the teaching is true or merely seductive? The Hermetic way suggests a pragmatic test. Does the principle lead to more clarity, more kindness, and more effective action? Truth, in useful terms, invites transformation that benefits the whole, the self, others, and the systems we inhabit. If an idea seeds divisiveness, pride, or stagnation, it likely needs re-examination. The pupil learns to hold teachings lightly, like a bird on a hand, grateful for the presence, willing to let it fly if needed. There is beauty in the humility of this approach. The master's lips do not deliver absolute answers, they encourage exploration. The book is not the final stop, it is a companion. The pupil is encouraged to test, to experiment, to see what works. The process is iterative. Learn, apply, reflect, refine. Over years, the process deepens. Patterns once opaque become transparent. The movement toward harmony, inner balance mirrored by outer alignment, becomes a steady rhythm rather than a frantic chase. Stories of transformation often follow similar arcs. Someone reads a line that reframes a lifetime of assumptions. Someone engages a practice that calms the storm of anxiety. Someone chooses service over self-interest and discovers that satisfaction multiplies. These stories are not remarkable because they are rare. They are remarkable because they reveal a lawfulness to growth. The Kybalion frames that law as hermetic, but you will recognize it in psychology, in spiritual traditions, and in the common wisdom of lived experience. Let me paint one last scene. The pupil, months later, stands in a small kitchen making tea. The sun slants through the window, casting long shadows. Beside the kettle lies the same little book, edges softened by handling. In the quiet, the pupil feels no dramatic revelation. Instead, there is a gentle unhooking of old anxieties, a softening of the rush to prove, and a growing appetite for life's small wonders. The teaching has not made life perfect, but it has conferred steadiness. The pupil listens more, speaks with clearer intent, acts with greater compassion. The lips of wisdom have not saturated the world with dogma. They have taught the pupil to be a better listener to the world itself. And what of the master? Perhaps the master watches from a distance, content that another mind has been quickened. Perhaps the master is a voice within the book or a pattern in the day. In any event, the exchange is complete. Pupil and teaching have found one another through a web of causes: attention, practice, curiosity, patience. The law has worked, cause and effect aligned with the resonance of readiness. Before we close this narrative, allow one practical flourish. Adopt the phrase that began our journey, when the ears of the student are ready to hear. Let it be a small liturgy you return to when discouragement arrives. Say it silently, as a reminder that readiness is a practice, not a static state. If you find yourself impatient, recall that the teaching arrives in forms you may not expect. If you worry that you are missing the moment, know that the law of attraction does not operate on a human timetable. Your steady practice is cause enough. Finally, carry this seed forward into your daily life. Curate your attention, nurture humility, choose words that foster learning, create small rituals to summon receptivity, and test teachings through kindness and effectiveness. Remember that the teaching is not a possession, but a living thread. As you align more deeply with it, you will find that lips and ears draw nearer, not by force, but by harmony. So mote it be. The little book will come when you are ready, and you will come when the book is ready. The dance is mutual, patient, and simple. Pay attention to the footsteps. Open your ears slowly. Let the lips of wisdom fill you in their own time.